You know that person who can describe their future in incredible detail. The business they're going to start, the body they're going to build, the book they're going to write, the country they're going to move to, the version of themselves who wakes up early, works with purpose, makes more money, travels more, and finally becomes the person they always knew they could be. Their Notes app is full of plans. They've saved the workouts, bought the course, researched the equipment, made the vision board, maybe even told everyone that this year is going to be different. And then Tuesday arrives. Nothing happens. From the outside, this looks simple. If you want something that badly, why don't you just do it? People call it laziness, lack of discipline, all talk, no action. Sometimes that is part of the story. But wanting a different life and tolerating the process required to create one are two very different psychological tasks. And if your imagination can run a marathon while your actual life is still tying its shoes, this may explain why. The first thing to understand is that dreaming can feel productive because emotionally, it resembles progress. Picture this. It's 1 a.m. You're imagining the company you'll build. You can see the office. You picture the people who doubted you finally taking you seriously. You imagine checking your bank account and thinking, I did it. For a few minutes, you experience the reward without going through the uncertainty that normally comes before it. Psychologist Gabriele Oettingen has studied the difference between realistic expectations and positive fantasies about the future. In experiments with Heather Kappas, highly positive fantasies were associated with lower energization. In plain English, mentally enjoying the finished result can sometimes make you less energized to do what reality requires. That does not mean visualization is useless. It means imagining a future is not the same as preparing to meet it. A dream says, I'm going to become a writer. Reality says, write 600 mediocre words before lunch. A dream gives you the highlight reel. Action introduces you to the raw footage. And this is where the second layer appears. Potential is comfortable because potential cannot be disproved. As long as the business stays in your head, it can still be brilliant. As long as the book remains unwritten, it can still be a masterpiece. As long as you haven't seriously tried, you can still say, I could do it if I really committed. But the moment you begin, fantasy becomes measurable. Now the first video gets 43 views. The first sales call is awkward. The first chapter sounds terrible. Beginning forces you to exchange an ideal identity for beginner reality. For some people, that is emotionally threatening. Research has linked fear of failure and some forms of perfectionism with procrastination. When a goal becomes tied to identity, doing badly may not feel like I'm learning. It can feel like maybe I'm not who I thought I was. So delay becomes protective. If you never fully try, you never have to fully find out. And that creates a strange bargain. You keep the dream, but lose the life it was supposed to create. Now here is the part that changes how procrastination looks. It is often treated like a time management problem, but research also describes procrastination as an emotion regulation problem. You sit down to work, immediately something uncomfortable appears. Boredom, confusion, self-doubt, frustration, anxiety. Then your phone lights up. You check one message. Maybe you decide you need more research. 40 minutes later, you know 7 new things about productivity and have produced absolutely nothing. But the discomfort went away. For the moment, procrastination worked. That is why delay can become so sticky. Avoiding the task gives you immediate relief, while the reward for doing it may be months or years away. Your future self gets the business, the degree, the stronger body. Your present self gets an unpleasant Tuesday night. Guess which one has to make the decision? Research on procrastination has repeatedly connected delay with factors such as low task value, distant rewards, impulsivity, and difficulty tolerating unpleasant emotions. So you can sincerely want a huge outcome while repeatedly avoiding the small experiences required to reach it. And those small experiences are rarely glamorous. Send the email, practice the skill, make the call, do the boring revision, try again after nobody notices. This is why fresh starts are so seductive. Monday. Next month. January. After the vacation. When work becomes less busy. When you feel more confident. A fresh start restores the fantasy. Continuation forces you to confront the middle. And the middle is where ambition becomes ordinary. There is another trap. Activities close to the goal can feel like the goal. Researching a business feels close to building one. Watching fitness content feels close to exercising. Buying books feels close to studying. Planning a creative project feels close to creating. Close enough to produce satisfaction, not close enough to produce the result. Planning itself is not the problem. The question is whether your planning ends in behavior. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer's work on implementation intentions helps explain why vague ambition often fails here. I'm going to exercise more is a goal. If it is 7 p.m. on Monday, I will put on my shoes and walk for 20 minutes is an executable plan. The difference sounds tiny, but dreams live in nouns. Writer, entrepreneur, athlete, creator. Behavior lives in verbs: write, call, lift, publish, practice. Sometimes we become emotionally attached to the noun while avoiding the verbs. And this is an important distinction. Not everyone who dreams without acting has the same problem. Sometimes the dream is not really yours. Maybe you love the idea of running a company but hate sales, operations, hiring, and risk. Maybe you want the body but not the lifestyle required to maintain it. That may not be a discipline problem. It may be information. A fantasy shows you the outcome you admire. Action reveals whether you want the process. For other people, the goal is real, but anxiety, low mood, attention difficulties, chronic stress, or other barriers make sustained action harder. Dreaming big and struggling to act does not, by itself, diagnose anything. So instead of asking, "Why am I so lazy?" ask a more useful question. What happens emotionally when I try to begin? Do you get overwhelmed? Afraid of doing it badly? Suddenly convinced you need more information? Do you make the task so enormous that starting feels impossible? Once you know what the avoidance is protecting you from, the next step becomes clearer. If fantasy is replacing effort, stop imagining only the successful future. Imagine the obstacle too. If perfectionism is freezing you, make the first version small enough to survive being imperfect. If the goal is too abstract, choose the next visible behavior. Not build a business. Contact one potential customer, not get fit. Walk for 20 minutes, not become a writer. Write one ugly page. This is where Oettingen's work on mental contrasting becomes useful. Instead of only imagining the desired future, you bring the main obstacle in present reality into the same picture. Then connect that obstacle to action. The dream stays, but reality is invited into the room. And maybe that is the shift people with huge ambitions need most. You do not need to stop dreaming big. Big dreams can give direction, but a dream is supposed to be a compass, not a substitute destination. At some point, the beautiful future in your head has to become a slightly inconvenient action in your calendar. The person who eventually writes the book is not the person who imagined it most vividly. It is the person willing to write badly before writing well. The person who builds the business is not the one who felt like an entrepreneur first. It is the one who tolerated rejection, repetition, and being a beginner long enough for competence to catch up with ambition. So if your dreams are enormous and your actions are tiny, you probably do not need a bigger dream. Make the dream smaller for today. One email, one page, one workout, one uncomfortable beginning. Because the future version of you is not built only when the whole life feels clear. It is built on ordinary afternoons when the dream stops feeling exciting and you do the next thing anyway. If this felt familiar, subscribe for more psychology like this. And tell me in the comments, what is one dream you have been thinking about more than acting on?